Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranams to all the devotees. Thank you all for joining in for our Bhagavad Gita NOI study session. We'll start with the prayers. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Vatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sujeevam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradhayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaura Dushe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namosute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare. Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaya Taralaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tadbhaktaya Namo Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yatkrapatamaham Mande Shri Gurun Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Ishwaram Harihi Om Tatsat. Hare Krishna. So Dandavat pranams to all the devotees. Thank you all very much for joining in for our Bhagavad Gita session. So we'll start with Bhagavad Gita, and the last 25 minutes, 30 minutes we'll do NOI, and then we'll take questions in the end. Devotees who would like to read can raise your hands. So we are on chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita. We saw in chapter 1 how Arjuna is posing as a very learned man, knowing everything. So in this way he speaks the entire first chapter. After Dhritarashtra inquires and Sanjaya speaks some verses, Arjuna speaks most of the verses in first chapter. The second chapter, Arjuna, guided by Krishna in his heart, is asking Krishna to take the chariot in between both the armies, and seeing all of his relatives, he becomes bewildered. Like we also situated in so many confusing situations where, even after having studied the Bhagavad Gita, we don't know how to apply that knowledge of Bhagavad Gita. So the first 2 chapters, actually Krishna is completing the second chapter precisely, the contents of the Gita summarized. Krishna is completing Bhagavad Gita, where he ultimately says, do all this, do whatever I've told you, and then you can situate yourself in Krishna consciousness, be liberated, even being in this material world, and at the end of this life, you'll go back home, back to Godhead. Typically, one instruction Krishna gave Arjuna, right? You do your duty and you surrender the results of all your activities, or not even surrender the results, do your activity for me. Yet karoshi yatashnashi, which is described later on in chapter number 9. Krishna has actually summarized it in the second chapter itself. Whatever you do, whatever you yat karoshi yatashnashi yajyohoshi jadasya tat tapashyasi konteya tat kurushva mat arpanam. That is the highest level of swadharma that we can do. Whatever we do, whatever we eat, whatever austerities we perform, whatever we give in charity, oh Arjuna, do it for me. Right? So that is the highest level of Swadharma. And if we do that, and then we also need to do Sanatana Dharma. Like for Swadharma, Krishna also tells Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya, you need to engage in fight, you fight in the battle. If you win also, you will get a higher destination. If you lose also, you'll get a higher destination. Right? So by performing our Swadharma perfectly well, right, we will definitely get a higher destination. But in order to attain Krishna Prema, we also need to do Sanatana Dharma. Right? So that is where Krishna is elaborating it further in Manmana Bhav Madbhakto Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mam Evesha Satyam Te Pratijani Priyosime. That also he brings about in the second chapter also. Right? He talks about Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga, and then he also talks about Karma Yoga. Karma Yoga is non-different from Bhakti Yoga. Karma Yoga is non-different from devotional service. Right? Because what is the consciousness in which we perform our karma actually determines whether it is a karma, weak karma, or karma, right? So as long as we perform a karma, that means we work for the pleasure of the Lord, then Krishna says such a person will go back home, back to Godhead, because he's dedicating everything to me. Right? When the word yoga comes, that means I'm performing activities in connection with the Supreme Lord, in service to the Supreme Lord. Right? So then Arjuna is still not satisfied. Arjuna is a pure devotee, but for us, he's asking further practical application questions. Right? Generally, after the theory, you have some practicals. Right? And you have the Q&A. So in this, by taking advantage of, the Q&A sessions, Arjuna is asking some questions to Krishna. Right? Why are you engaging me in warfare? Right? Why should so many people be killed just because I have to become the king? And Prabhupada gives a very beautiful purport in each of those verses, telling us how Arjuna is asking those questions on our behalf. Right? And then Krishna starts explaining, saying, you want to renounce everything, go to the forest, but then nobody can be without working, especially a Kshatriya like you. You'll be helplessly forced to be acting on something, right? And you also discussed how suddenly when Arjuna is in the forest and is begging alms and all that, but he does not get food, suddenly he will get angry, because that is the nature of a Kshatriya. So he will start hunting animals and start eating something like that, right? So better than a person who renounces the activities is a person who performs such activities for the pleasure of the Lord and does not attach himself to the results of the activities. And more better than that is to dedicate the results at the lotus feet of the Lord. Performing prescribed duty is better than not working. Right? And performing the prescribed duty also, doing the prescribed duty for the pleasure of the Lord. Yajnatat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandanaha. Right? Performing such work for the pleasure of the Lord. In that way, your work will be purified and you yourself will be purified. Cheto darpana marjanam happens by performing work for Krishna, because it becomes a yajna. And then later on, Krishna explains about how jivo jivasya jivanam, right? Every living entity is actually dependent on another living entity. And each of them are required to perform their duties, even to get their daily meal. We spoke about how even the tiger and the lion also, they have to hunt their prey. And in this way, they have to maintain their own body. So if that is the situation of even animals, what about human beings? Even human beings have to perform their daily duties. Devotees also perform their regular swadharma, right? And they perform it in the consciousness of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then he also says, I don't have any duties to perform, yet I am also performing some duties, right? And then he gives the example of King Janaka, right? King Janaka, right? He is also a living entity. He is a Kshatriya. He also performed duties. He performed his regular duties. At the same time, he was also engaged in always remembering Krishna. Right? Pralado Janako Bhishmo. He's one of the 12 Mahajans, right? He's one of the 12 Mahajans. He's also a king, right? So one can be situated as a king or as a Shudra or as a Brahmana or as a whatever, as a Grihastha, whatever may be. But if one performs actions for the pleasure of the Lord, and then one is not bound by the actions so performed, and one can actually go back home, back to Godhead, being situated in the Grihastha ashram or being situated as a Kshatriya, whatever Varna or ashrama one is in. As long as one performs one's duties according to the injunctions of the scriptures and not attached to the results and offers such results to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is said to be already situated in the transcendental platform. Now, it's very clear. Now, Arjuna is saying, okay, fine, let me do my duty. But then Arjuna is saying, I don't want to perform any sinful actions. But then why am I driven to perform certain sinful activities, right? Sometimes you take a resolution, I will not watch a movie, I will not watch TV serials, I will not watch this, I will not watch that. Like that, we tell ourselves, right? But for a long period of time, right, we are not able to give up those activities. Some or the other, aaj last bar dekh lete hain, right? One day it's okay, let me watch. And then what happens? Those kind of actions create impressions in our mind, right? The good dog and the bad dog. The more you do the activity is given by the bad dog, the more we are empowering the bad dog to control us further. That is why it is always best to say no, right? Postpone things that we know are not likely to help us in our devotional life, and do immediately those things that will help us enhance our devotional service, right? That is a very, very cardinal rule that we can regularly follow, right? When we think that, but generally what we do just the opposite, right? When we feel like doing something, then we say, okay, ye khatam kar dete hain. Like, let's just put an end to it by just watching it. No, that doesn't work. If you do it, then automatically the interest will come again. Maybe we are satisfied at that time, but then the interest will come again, right? So whenever there is a thought in the mind that that wants us to do something that is not favorable to Krishna consciousness, like Haridas Thakur told the prostitute, okay, let me chant my rounds and then I will give you time, right? So similarly, we should tell the mind, I will give you time, I will do whatever you want, but let me do A, B, C, D square, right? And as we do A, B, C, D square activities, then there is no time to do that. And even if we have the time, maybe we'll not have the inclination anymore, right? Because we perform devotional service, Krishna will guide us, Krishna will help us. So in this way, by being dependent on the Lord and by ourselves endeavoring to say no to Maya, we will ultimately come over our lower instincts. Now, let's start from verse number 36. Right here, very beautiful question Arjuna is asking, right? I don't want to do Papa, but then I am forced to do Papa. Why? All right, let me share my screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 3.36. Okay. Arjuna Vacha. Sridhar Prabhu, go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Arjuna Vacha. Adakena prayuktoyam papam charadi purushaka anichanna vivarshena paladiva niyojita. Arjuna Vacha. Arjuna said, Ada, then, Kena, by what, prayukta, impelled, I am one, papam, sin, karati, does, pushat, a man, anicham, without desiring, api, although, Varshaneya, co-descendant of Vrishi, Balat by force, Eva as if Niyojita engaged. Hare Krishna Dandot Pranam. Translation by Prabhupada. Arjuna said, O descendant of Vrishi, by what is one impelled to sinful act, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force. Purport. A living entity as part and parcel of Supreme, in originally spiritual, pure and free from all material contamination. Therefore, by nature, he is not subject to the sin of material world. But when he is in contact with the material nature, he acts in many sinful ways without hesitation and sometimes even against his will. As such, Arjuna's question to Krishna is very sacred as to prevented nature of living entities. Although the living entity sometimes does not want to act in sin, he is still forced to act, sinful action or not, however, impelled by the super soul within, but are due to another cause, as the Lord explained in the next verse. Hare Krishna, Dandot Pranam Mataji.
Dandot Pranam, thank you so much. Okay, so, this verse is very, very beautiful verse, right? What is this? Prayuktaha, that means it looks like we are being forced, we are being impelled by something within us, right? We don't want to do it, but we're impelled. Anichan, Icha means what we know, Icha means to desire something, to want to do something. But Anichan means not desiring, I don't want to do it, but yet I am impelled, Prayuktaha. And then another word is Balat, right? Balat, Pramati Balavat Dridam, like Arjuna tells. Chanchalam hi mana Krishna, Pramati Balavat Dridam. Balavat means very, very strong. Like that, balat, by force, it looks like somebody is going to force us to perform sinful acts. Although I'm not willing, manichan, right? So let's see what Krishna says. This is Krishna is going to answer this question right away. Yeah. Text number 37. Sindhu Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna.
Sri Bhagavan Vacha. Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Text 37. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. Kama esha krodha esha rajoguna samudbhavaha mahasano mahapapma iti enam iha vairinam. Shri Bhagavan Vacha, the personality of Godhead, said, Kamaha, lust, Ishaha, this, Krodhaha, wrath, Ishaha, this, Rajoguna, the mode of passion, Samudbhavaha, born of, Maha Ashanaha, all devouring, Mahapapma, greatly sinful, Vidhi, no, Enam, this, Iha, in the material world, Vairinam, the greatest enemy. Translation, purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjuna, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring, sinful enemy of this world. What? When a living entity comes in contact with the material creation, his eternal love for Krishna is transformed into lust in association with the mode of passion. Or in other words, the sense of love of God becomes transformed into lust, as milk in contact with sour tamarind is transformed into yogurt. Then again, when lust is unsatisfied, it turns into wrath. Wrath is transformed into illusion, and illusion continues the material existence. Therefore, lust is the greatest enemy of the living entity, and it's the lust only which induces the pure living entity to remain entangled in the material world. Wrath is a manifestation of the mode of ignorance. These modes exhibit themselves as wrath and other corollaries. If, therefore, the mode of passion, instead of being degraded into the mode of ignorance, is elevated to the mode of goodness by the prescribed method of living and acting, then one can be saved from the degradation of wrath by spiritual attachment. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expanded himself into many for his ever-increasing spiritual bliss, and the living entities are part and parcels of the spiritual bliss. They also have partial independence, but by misuse of their independence and the service attitude is transformed into the propensity for sense enjoyment, they come under the sway of lust. This material creation is created by the Lord to give facility to the conditioned souls to fulfill these lustful propensities, and when completely baffled by prolonged lustful activities, the living entities begin to inquire about their real position. This inquiry is the beginning of the Vedanta Sutras, wherein it is said, Atato Brahma Jignasha. One should inquire into the Supreme, and the Supreme is defined in Srimad Bhagavatam as Janma Asya Yato Vayad Itaratascha, or the origin of everything is the Supreme Brahman. Therefore, the origin of lust is also in the Supreme. If, therefore, lust is transformed into love for the Supreme or transformed into Krishna consciousness, or in other words, desiring everything for Krishna, then both lust and wrath can be spiritualized. Hanuman, the great servitor of Lord Rama, exhibited his wrath by burning the golden city of Ravana, but by doing so, he became the greatest devotee of the Lord. Here also in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord induces Arjuna to engage his wrath upon his enemies for the satisfaction of the Lord. Therefore, lust and wrath, when they are employed in Krishna consciousness, become our friends instead of our enemies. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so if we see the same example, Prabhupada also quotes in the Ishopanishad. Nectar of Instruction. Right? He quotes the same example of how Arjuna dovetailed his anger by following instructions of the Lord and fighting with the Kauravas. Similarly, Hanumanji, he also dovetailed his anger by fighting with Ravana, by burning the city of Lanka. In this way, Hanuman also dovetailed his anger propensity. Right? So in this way, we can dovetail everything except envy. Right? Envy, there is no vacancy in the spiritual world. Apart from that, lust can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord by transforming it into love. Right? When what we have for other living entities of this material world is lust. Why is it lust? Because it is based on the bodily attachment. Right? And which is not eternal, which is very temporary, which is like, that they say in this material world, it is love at first sight and divorce at first fight. Right? So much weak our love is, right? Because it's not even love, right? Love can never be, love can never be for selfish purposes, right? As long as somebody fulfills our sense gratification, we love that person. Then when that person no longer fulfills our sense gratification, then we take a divorce, or we don't want to talk to them. They don't feed our ego, our false ego, right? They don't keep flattering us. Then we don't want to love them anymore. So is that love? No, right? That is lust only, Arjuna, right? That is lust only. Very clearly Krishna has answered Arjuna's question, right? So it is a very important fact that we also make a lot of resolutions. No, I should not do this, I should not do that. But what is that? The seed of sense gratification is there in our heart. That seed of sense gratification, which is lust, that only propels us to do things, although we take resolutions. Because we know, why do we take resolutions? Because it is there, we have the jnana. We have the knowledge that this is bad for us. This is bad for my progress in Krishna consciousness. That's why we take resolutions. But then what happens? The seed of lust, or the seed of sense gratification, which is lust, is deep rooted in our hearts. That is why we end up doing things for which we have taken a resolution of not doing it. Right? So how to conquer this enemy called lust? And we all know lust, when satisfied also, right, it is no good. Why? Because it will then take a form of greed, right? Not only am I satisfied with what I have right now, I want more and more and more. So lust can never be satisfied. And then when the lust is not satisfied, then it becomes anger. And both lust as well as anger can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord. But it can only be done, and this dovetailing is possible only in the association of devotees. Right? We cannot experience a higher taste without being in the association of those who are experiencing the higher taste. It is not possible to convert lust into love by our own endeavor. No, it is not at all possible. Otherwise, we are only deluding ourselves that I'm doing something for the Lord, while we may be actually engaging in sense gratification, right? But in the association of those devotees who are already doing everything in the service of the Lord, right? Our spiritual masters, our very senior devotees who've been serving the Lord for 50 years, right? 50 plus years, 40 years, 30 years, right? How selfless they are in actually helping others to come to the process. How wonderfully they are shining examples for all of us to follow. Such kind of devotees, in their association, it is very easy to dovetail our lust and anger, especially in the service of the Lord, and helping that lust and anger to get transformed into a love and anger dovetailed for the pleasure of the Lord. Right? What is love? Love is nothing but the propensity to serve. Right? This is what Radhanath Swami Maharaj says. To love means to serve, and to serve means to please. Right? There is no selfishness. There is no self-aggrandizement, or there is no there is no self, there is no I in the picture. Basically, service means we are serving the master. We are serving the person who is our master, who is our beloved, simply for their pleasure. That's why Prabhupada tells in a lecture that the love for a mother, to the child, is the highest of such love that can be seen in this material world. Even motherly love today is, it cannot be called selfless, right? Being a mother, I can also say that, right? It is not completely selfless, right? Because that seed of sense gratification is so deeply rooted in our heart that sometimes we do expect, right, that my daughter will do this, my daughter will do that, right? Although we reiterate ourselves, right? It is not, because that person is just put under my care for a certain term, according to that person's karma, and according to that person's desires. But our deep-rooted sense gratification is so much that we forget it, right? At the time of application, it does not cross our mind. That is why we need to be in the association of those devotees who are Mahabhagavatas, who are Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. That means person Bhagavatam, we have to serve. Book Bhagavatam, of course, we always read every day. It has become ingrained in us as a habit that every day we do Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. But person Bhagavata service also we have to ingrain it as a regular practice. Because in their association, then we can put this knowledge, jnana, it can become vijnana, or it can become wisdom, right? Which we know at the right time how to apply the principles of Bhagavad Gita in our life, right? Lust can be transformed into love. The anger can be dovetailed in the service of the Lord only by in the association of those devotees, right? Actually, a very beautiful point someone was making in a class, right? It is not about physical association, right? Not being in the proximity of somebody that we say in the association of devotees, right? Whom we give our heart to, whom do we inquire from, whom do we hear from, whose guidance do we take when we are in a, dvivida, when we are in a confusion, when we are in doubt, when you are in doubt, whose association we take. If we take the association of senior devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness, then we will be able to take their guidance and practice what they applied in that particular situation. Right? That is what is important. Right? Not just being close to somebody, being like Prabhupada said, this fly is the closest to me, but it is causing me the greatest trouble. Right? So we don't want to be in physical proximity. Right? Of course, Vapu Seva is also very important. Right? When our spiritual masters come, then we should not sit at home saying, I'll do Vani Seva. No. At every opportunity, we should do Vapu Seva. But we should always understand that association means doing something, following the instructions of the spiritual master. Right? Of course, if the instruction of the spiritual master is to serve me by cooking for me, oh, what better privilege, right? You should be there at the right time to give the right service to Srila Guru Maharaj by cooking for Guru Maharaj. Right? But at the service of the spiritual master is generally mostly possible for most of us through Vani. That means we follow the instructions of the spiritual master. That's what Prabhupada said. This fly is closest to me, causing me greatest trouble. But who are those devotees who are very, very close to Prabhupada? Those devotees who were sent by Prabhupada, right? The 6 people, the 3 devotee couples, right? They had the association of Prabhupada only for a very short time. And Prabhupada then said, okay, fine, you have learned. You go to London and open a center. Right? Just because they went away, were they not dear to Prabhupada? No, they were most dear to Prabhupada because they left the comforts of the association of a pure devotee to follow the instructions of the devotee. Right? That is the greatest. That what does it show? It shows that they were completely selfless. Right? It is very nice. Just like Prabhupada left Vrindavan Dham to give Krishna to the people in the Western world. These 6 people, the 3 couples, they also left Prabhupada's association to follow the instructions of Prabhupada. And hence, right, today we see that they are all spiritual masters in themselves. They are guiding so many people because they followed the instructions of their spiritual master. They were empowered by Prabhupada to actually practice and preach the message of Krishna consciousness. So that is the secret for empowerment in Krishna consciousness. Krishna also tells the same thing. Somebody who follows my instructions of preaching this message to others, such a person is very dear to me, right? And that is what Srila Prabhupada also followed. All of our Vaishnava Acharyas also followed. And this is the way by which we can please our spiritual masters. And only when we please our spiritual masters, then what happens? We will be able to dovetail. By their blessings only, we will be able to dovetail our propensities of lust and anger in the service of the Lord. Like that. Okay, let's move for text number 38. Sudha Mataji, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dandavat.
Dhume navriyate varni yatatarsho malena cha yato denavrato garbha tata tene damavratam. Synonyms: Dhumena, by smoke; avrite, avriyate, is covered; vahani, fire; yata, just as; adarsha, mirror; malena, by dust; cha, also; yata, just as; ulbena, by the womb; avrata, is covered; garbha, embryo; tata, so; tena, by that; lust; idam, tena, by that lust; idam, this; avratam, is covered. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the embryo is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Purport. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This loving is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and womb about the embryo. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The embryo covered by the womb is an analogy in illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and bees, and the smoke covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke in the fire, fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy, lust, by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Mataji, you are on mute, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you so much. Sorry. So I was just saying that in this purport, right? Nowhere we see Prabhupada. Even in the last line of the sentence, he will not say that we can cultivate Krishna consciousness, right? And he does not end the sentence at all like that. Right, always Prabhupada says, if you notice, right, under the guidance of a spiritual master, under able guidance, right, like that Prabhupada always stays, because that's why bhakti is referred to a creeper, right? I always mention this, because bhakti can never be like a tall tree standing all of its own, right? We can never reach that stage. Even the purest of the devotees, they also hanker for association of other devotees, right? So bhakti is never a tall tree standing independently and giving shelter to others, right? Even the best of the devotees who give shelter to many others, they also have taken shelter of their guru. They have taken a shelter of a guru under the guru parampara. That is why it's very important. Prabhupada always says under able guidance, and such guidance is not just required in the beginning stages. Such guidance is always required throughout our life until we perfect our life. And even when we go to the spiritual world, we're always guided by our seniors, be the gopis or the manjaris or the gopas or whatever be our rasa with the Lord. We'll always be guided by our seniors, and the senior most will be guided by Shri Radha and Krishna themselves, right? Like Arjuna is guided by Krishna himself, who's the spiritual master. So the spiritual master will always be there to guide us in the service of the Lord. Right, very beautifully Prabhupada has explained the purport, right? We'll quickly summarize, there's no need for an explanation. Very beautifully Prabhupada has given, but we'll just summarize that. So the worst stage is that of an embryo in the womb, right? We all know, right? Most of us are mothers, and we also know that the embryo for the 9 months, the child is actually in the womb with no consciousness, in the urine and the pus and the blood and the stool and the whatnot in the stomach of the mother. And it's said in Bhagavatam that the child actually prays to the Lord, "Oh Lord, please pull me out of this condition. I'm suffering," right? And then when the child is born, and then cuckoo and all of that, the parents and the relatives, you all cuddle the child and talk to the child in such a, what happens? The child becomes bewildered. The child thinks, okay, so I'm being very much loved here, this is the place I belong. And the child actually forgets the promise that the child made to the Lord in the womb. So the child in the womb is the most it's a condition where one does not know oneself, right? One does not know why suffering. One is in complete darkness. That is the worst level of consciousness, where one does not know anything, what is happening around me. One is not able to help oneself. One is in such a helpless state. But even such helplessness, actually, what does the child do? The child prays to the Lord. That is why Kunti Maharani is saying, give me distress, more and more distress. Because in those conditions, I'm able to remember the Lord. Because that is the worst level of consciousness, where one is not at all having any kind of consciousness, right? And better than the child in the womb is spoken about the dust in the mirror, right? We cannot see ourselves when there is complete dust. What is it? That it looks like some figure is standing in front of the mirror, but we can't see anything, right? So that is the second level, right? By chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, right? Why does Prabhupada actually started with Cheto Darpana Marjanam and not just my realization? As I was reading, I was just thinking, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, actually, dust in the mirror is actually for birds and beasts. If you see in Prabhupada mentions here, this is for birds and beasts. Why? Because people of Kali Yuga, right, we have made our consciousness like that of birds and beasts, because we don't even, whatever what do we aspire for, right? At least before coming to Krishna consciousness, I can talk for myself, right? Better eating, better sleeping, earning more money, living the best comforts of comforts. That was all I aspired for, right? When I go to the temple, I will say, thank you, oh Lord, I have my exam today, right? Even today we pray, but at least we say that, oh Lord, if it pleases you, let us do something that, to the best of our ability so we can please you, right? At least the terminology or the way we pray is different. But previously, what do we pray? Oh Lord, I want a big house, I want a lot of money, I want this, I want that. And then, we want the Lord to be our order supplier. That is how I was, at least. Isn't it? So now, that is why Prabhupada is saying, Cheto Darpana Marjanam, we are in the level of birds and beasts, right? Because only, the sense gratification is on top of our mind. But slowly, from this stage, we have to go to the stage, or some of us, by regularly hearing Prabhupada's class, slowly we have been progressing little bit at least towards that, the smoke in the fire, right? The smoke comes means it very, very clear that the fire is there, the fire is manifesting. So we simply have to blow. Like that, what if we blow? What happens? The smoke goes and fire automatically comes, right? That is the highest level of ignorance that can be there. That means, the highest level of removal of ignorance. That means from this stage, it is very easy to clear off the ignorance that is there in our heart, and immediately we are fertile to receive transcendental knowledge and apply transcendental knowledge in our life. So quickly we can introspect ourselves, which stage we are, right? Whether we are in the stage of the child in the womb, or whether we are in the stage of dust in the mirror, or whether our ignorance is in the level of smoke and fire. So accordingly, we have to practice more and more, right? And then we know self-evaluation, right? We don't have to take any certificate from anybody which level we are in, right? Why? Because Prabhupada says, just like a person who is hungry, right? If a person is not at all hungry, then a person will only take little bit, right? To the extent of our hunger, we will be able to receive transcendental knowledge and apply it, right? The more we are hungry, the more we will inquire, the more we will find out what is good for us, and the more we will apply it in our life, right? And the moment we think we know everything, that means we are happy, satisfied. We cannot, and such condition is not even there for pure devotees of the Lord, because pure devotees are also hankering, how can I serve the Lord better? Nobody reaches a condition where I know everything. There is nothing I need to know. No, because if the Lord only puts devotees into illusion sometimes for various in order to fulfill his desire, to fulfill various purposes, the Lord only puts even pure devotees under illusion. Like Arjuna is put under illusion. Now Arjuna is asking questions like a conditioned soul, isn't it? So all of us can be put under illusion, except the Lord. We cannot claim that anybody else can never be put into illusion. It's not possible. If the Lord wills, anyone and everyone can be put into illusion. That is why we need to always be surrendered to the Lord. Oh Lord, if putting me in illusion pleases you, let me be put under illusion. But in whatever state I may be, oh Lord, kindly let me always engage in your devotional service. That should be our only prayer. In this way, our consciousness should always be rooted in how we can please the Lord by engaging in devotional service. Okay, let's move forward. Text number 39. Nagavani Mataji, go ahead. Avritam jnanametena jnanino nityavairina kamarupena kaunteya duspurena nalena cha. Hare Krishna. I'm so happy you're able to unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna.
Read the sentence. Hare Krishna.
Sorry, Mataji. Yeah, before you came also, I said Hare Krishna to everybody. But that time also I could mute, but I don't know, sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah,
Mataji.
see, you told Hare Krishna to everybody in the beginning of the session. That's why you're able to unmute. See, Krishna's mercy on you. Vaishnava's mercy on you. Yes, Mataji. Please go ahead. Synonyms.
Thank you so much. You want me to read synonyms, na?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry.
Avritam, covered. Jnanam,
Avritam, covered. Jnanam, pure consciousness. Etam.
etena.
Sorry, वो cover हो रहा है माताजी.
Can
you please?
No, one second, Mataji. I would suggest you lower your hand now. Take your copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? We are on. Which verse are we in? We are on verse number. We are on verse number 39. I would request you, Mataji, please take your copy of the Bhagavad Gita, because it becomes easy for you to read, especially all the devotees who are looking at it from the mobile. I would suggest please have your own copy of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? I'm sharing the screen so that we all know which verse we are in, which purport we are reading, right? Because it becomes difficult. It is not good for your eyes also, that you are looking at the small this thing on the mobile and trying to read.
Yeah,
so please open. Okay, I will come back to you.
Can you read synonyms? So I'll read translation.
Mataji, I will definitely give you a chance. Okay, if not Bhagavad Gita, at least Nectar of Instruction. So please keep both the books open and ready with you. NOI, we are on verse number 5. Okay, please keep both the books open. And then now we will request Manimala Mataji to go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Mataji. Synonyms, word to word translation. Manimala Mataji, you want to read later also? Okay, synonyms, word to word translation. Avritam, covered. Okay, Karpagavalli Mataji, who want to read now? I would request devotees who are having their books to read first, and then we can call out the other devotees later. You can raise your hands later. Yeah. Avritam covered.
Hare Krishna Dandratnama. Avritam covered. Jnanam, pure consciousness. Eterna, by this Jnanamaya of the knower. Nitya Vairina, by the eternal enemy. Kama Rupina, in the form of lust. Kaunteya, O son of Kunti. Duspurina, never to be satisfied. Analena, by the fire. Cha, also. Translation by Prabhupada Kiji. Just a wise living entity's pure consciousness become covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Purport, shall I read, Mataji?
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mataji. Purport by Prabhupada Kiji. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by the constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maitunya Agraha. Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization and the basement of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of the living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness. Actually, that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer.
Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Yeah. So, Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, Samudbhava. Right? So, very clearly, Prabhupada has already told us, and Krishna has told us, and Prabhupada has explained to us also. Right? What is the eternal enemy? Kama. That is lust. That means any desire for sense gratification that is not doubted in the service of the Lord. That is our eternal enemy. It is called as lust. So, that is what is given here by Prabhupada also, and Krishna also says that such lust or sense gratification can never be satisfied. Just like you put so much of ghee on the fire, and then what happens? It looks like the fire is about to be extinguished, right? When you put ghee in the fire, you'll always find that it looks like the fire is going to be extinguished. But then, after a second, what happens? It starts blazing. The fire starts blazing. Like that. Similarly, whenever we listen to the bad dog, we engage in some kind of sense gratification, and what happens? There is a feeling of happiness. It looks like, yeah, I'm satisfied right now, right? And then I will never engage in it now, right? Because it's giving me a little bit of satisfaction now, and now I'll become, I'll come back to the path. And what happens? Because of the impression that it is created in our heart, in future, it will start blazing more, right? And the fire will be there so much more, and we will find it very difficult to control that particular urge, right? The more we indulge in sense gratification, the more it will be difficult for us to satisfy or control that particular urge in doing that particular activity. That is why you should always say no, right? So that's what Prabhupada is going to explain in the next purport. Let's read text number 40. Okay, let me share my screen quickly. Monimala Mataji, did you read now? No, Karpagavali Mataji, yes. Monimala Mataji, go ahead. Indriyani manobhuddher asyadishthanamuchyate etairimmohyatesha jnanam avritya dehinam. Suranam, so what about translation? Okay, Janki Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Danat Pranam. Indriyani mano buddhe asyadishthānam uchyate eter vimohotyesha jnanam avritya dehinam. Synonyms: Indriyani, the senses; Manaha, the mind; Buddhi, the intelligence; Asya, of this lust; Adhishthanam, sitting place; Uchyate is called; Ete, by all these; Vimohayati, bewilders; Ishaha, this lust; Jnanam, knowledge; Avritya, covering; Dehinam, of the embodied. Should I continue the translation, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. Yes.
Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entities and bewilders them. Purport: the enemy has captured different strategic position in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense object, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification, and as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of the lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13. Yashyatma buddhi kunapetri dhatuke swadhi kalatradishu bhauma ijyadim yat tirtha buddhi salilene karchij janeshu abneshu sa eva gokarah. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to the place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge, there is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you so much, Madhu. Very important verse, right? There is a very nice analogy that's given here. Like, for example, when we go to the airport, right? There are so many checkpoints which are there. Like, for example, you're not supposed to carry, sharp objects in the flight, right? First, initially, you have a check-in where you check your baggage, just to check if, you have anything in the, any sharp object, right? Say, there also, you have befriended that person, right? For example, a terrorist is there, right? So a terrorist actually wants to blast a plane, right? There's so many checkpoints are there. But what happens in the baggage counter also, the person who's doing the baggage checking, right? He also knows that this person is a terrorist, but he's actually involved with the terrorist. Maybe he's bribed him or whatever may be the reason. So what happens? He passes through the baggage check. Then he goes to the check-in, customs check where again they check your personal belongings, they check the weight of your hand luggage, etc. They check everything. There also, he has got a friend, right? And that friend also allows him to go. And then he enters into the flight with a knife or a gun, right? Final checkpoint is there when somebody is boarding the flight, right? So like this, the senses, the mind, and the intelligence, they all become sitting places of lust. Right? If they are bewildered, and if our sense gratification befriends them, then just like, although there are so many checkpoints, like you have the baggage check, and then you have the hand luggage check, and then you have the physical frisking also. In spite of that, somebody is able to carry a gun or a knife, and then somebody is able to, carry a bomb or something, and one is able to blast a plane. That means not only do we kill ourselves, we also kill other people. Like this bomb blast, for example, if it happens, right? Maybe he taking a bomb in the flight, whatever maybe, because he's befriended all of the the responsible positions in the airport, like he's befriended somebody in the baggage checkpoint, in the hand luggage checkpoint, and also in the physical frisking checkpoint. Because if he enters, not only does he kill himself, but he also kills the people around him, isn't it? Similarly, when we have various checkpoints in our body, right? Prabhupada gives here the senses, the mind, and intelligence. Right? So initially, how we dovetail the senses? By engaging in the service of the Lord. But if we don't do that, if we are doing things for our own sense gratification, then our lust has befriended our senses. Then in our mind, manasa deho geho jo kichu more arpilu tuapade nanda kishore. We want to engage our mind, intelligence, and senses in the service of the Lord. But then if our mind is wandering, which movie should I watch today? Which, there's the India-Pakistan cricket match coming at 3 o'clock in the evening, and from morning we are meditating on that. In our Brahma Muhurta time, we are meditating on, who will win the match. How can I inform all of the people in my society? Let's come together and watch the match in my house. Let's prepare nice this thing and enjoy. All that is running in our mind. The mind is totally bewildered. Mind is totally lost. Lust is bewildered the mind, isn't it? And then intelligence, right? We plan how to meet, where to meet, how to watch, how many people are coming, how do we accommodate everybody in which room, or our room is not sufficient, we have 50 people, let's book a, the society ka community hall book karte hain, uske liye kitna pay kar. That our intelligence starts working on those things which are going to bewilder us more and more. Not only do we kill ourselves, that means we not only waste our time, but we also ask all the 50 people who may be doing some better things. We call them also. And then we are inside the community hall watching some stupid match. Only the people who are playing the match, at least they will get some money. We are wasting our time. We are wasting our energy. We are wasting our, association. The people's association, we could have utilized it in a better way. But we are not even taking association. We are all looking at the TV or looking at the big, whatever, the projector screen, whatever they have made. Right? We are not taking association, but we have just pulled so many people together for some futile work and wasted everybody's time. So in this way, we have the free will, how we want to engage our senses, our mind, and intelligence. They are places of lust. Very clearly, Prabhupada is given in the purport. Right? In the translation also, Prabhupada is translated very beautifully. That's the first line. Senses, mind, and intelligence, sitting places of the lust. When we know something, then what we should do? We should be careful about it. If you are not careful about it, then what happens? We don't engage these specific places in the service of the Lord. When we don't engage these in the service of the Lord, then what happens? They become headquarters of sense gratification. And then what happens? It becomes oh my God, its time is 1:30. Okay. So they all become, instead of helping us, right? These are all checkpoints which, if dovetailed properly, yasyatma buddhi kunape tridhatuke swadi kalatrishu boma ijyadaha yatyartha buddhi shalera karhechet janeshu abhigneshu eva gokaraha. Right? So we have to engage all the three senses, and then our mind, and also our intelligence. Right? If we simply engage our senses, not enough. Like Prabhupada gives example here. We go to a holy dham, but we go there also, and we don't engage our senses in the service of the Lord. We don't hear Krishna Katha. We don't relish the pastimes of the Lord. Then what happens? Although we've engaged one sense, it means you are walking in the holy dham, but yet we've not engaged our other senses, the mind and intelligence, in hearing about the pastimes of the Lord. Then we are as good as an ass or a cow. Right? Which is as good as a beast, because we're not even employing our human propensity of inquiring about the Lord, hearing about the Lord, even when we are in a holy dham. And that is how the mind tricks us, right? Our senses are engaged, but if our mind is going somewhere else, right, then it is no use, right? Because we want to, why are we doing a particular activity? Because right now we don't have taste for doing that particular activity. By simply engaging our senses, we want to engage our mind, right? As we are moving the beads, the senses is helping us perform the devotional service of chanting. But the mind also should be helpful. The mind, whenever the mind wanders, right? You have to use the intelligence to engage the mind to bring it back to hearing the holy names of the Lord. If you don't do that, then it becomes very mechanical. It becomes a counting exercise, right? And then we don't know. Sometimes we take 10 minutes to chant around because our mind is going all around the place, thinking so many other things. If we don't bring our mind back, we have to be very alert, because Prabhupada and Lord Sri Krishna have told us these are points where there can be damage, but we have to be very, very careful and alert to these points, especially when we do devotional service, so that we can get the maximum advantage of doing this devotional service. All right. So with this, we end our Bhagavad Gita study. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. So next 15 minutes, let's try and study Nectar of Instruction. So Nectar of Instruction, we are on verse number 5. Very, very beautiful verse. We should try and definitely by heart this verse. Of course, first 4 verses, most of us would have by hearted because it is part of our Bhakti Shastri course. At least by that we would have memorized. But this 5th verse is very, very, very important verse. If possible, we should memorize, this verse, right? It's a very, very, very important verse. And it also tells us our spiritual life advancement depends on our execution of this verse, right? Because if we don't know this, then we don't offer proper respect to a Vaishnava. If we criticize a Vaishnava, then our spiritual life, whatever effort we are putting by chanting, by doing ABCD square, all of that will go down the drain. Krishneti yasya girita manasadriyeta dikshasti chet pranatibhischa bhajantanisham shushrushaya bhajana vigyam ananyamanya nindadi shunya hridanipsita sangalabdya. Nindadi shunya, that means without having any propensity to criticize Vaishnavas. This can be obtained only in the association of those Vaishnavas who don't have the propensity to criticize, right? Otherwise, this is very, very difficult because we have the tendency to talk. We always want to talk something or the other, right? Just to gain some attention, just to gain friends. We simply want to talk something. Right? When we are talking like this, it becomes very, very detrimental to our devotional service if we engage in gossip, if we engage in criticizing, anybody for that matter, or especially if we end up criticizing a Vaishnava. So in this way, this verse is very important, that we have to offer respects to every devotee, right? Depending on the advancement of the devotee, either we mentally honor the devotee, or we offer physical obeisances, or we offer obeisances every time we see that devotee, and we look for opportunities to hear from that particular devotee, right? Depending on whether a devotee is Kanishta, Madhyama, or Uttama, compared to where we are, right? Sometimes it may, a devotee may be Kanishta Bhakta, but such devotee may be very inspiring for us. Why? Because our level is not even Kanishta. Our level is, currently we are only asking, Lord, I want this, I want this, I want this. If our level is that, then we should offer, every time a Kanishta Adhikari comes in front of us, we should offer obeisances, right? It all is in level of where we are, right? So in that way, we should offer respect to everybody, right? There's nobody that we can think is inferior to us. A devotee never thinks that somebody is inferior to us. So a devotee always offers respectful obeisances to everybody, right? And specifically to senior devotees, one has to offer respects every time. See, whenever we offer obeisances, what are we doing? We are offering our gratitude to that particular person who has enabled us to remain in Krishna consciousness, who has enabled us to be to even get into Krishna consciousness, like that. All right, so let's quickly go ahead and read. We were talking about how we have to offer obeisances to our spiritual master, to Nuttama Adhikari Bhakta, because such guru is actually connecting us to the parampara. Taj vijnartam so guru meva vigachet, right? Only by the mercy of a spiritual master one is able to understand the signs of transcendental truth. Okay, let's move forward. Monimala Mataji, I hope you have your book now. Please read. One should not accept. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, looks like you've unmuted, Mataji, but we are not able to hear you. Is it only with me? Okay, Rohini Mataji, go ahead. Rohini Mataji, I'm not able to hear anybody.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Okay, go ahead.
One should not accept a spiritual master without following his instruction, nor should one accept a spiritual master just to make a fashionable show of spiritual life. One must be jignasu, very much inquisitive to learn from the bona fide spiritual master. The inquiries one makes should strictly pertain to transcendental science. Jignashu Shreya Uttamam. The word Uttamam refers to that which is above material knowledge. Tama means the darkness of this material world, and Ut means transcendental. Generally, people are very interested in inquiring about mundane subject matters. But when one has lost such interest and is simply interested in transcendental subject matters, he is quite fit for being initiated. When one is actually initiated by the bona fide spiritual master, and when he seriously engages in the service of the Lord, he should be accepted as a Madhyama Adhikari. The chanting of the holy names of Krishna is so sublime that if one chants the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra offenselessly, carefully avoiding the 10 offenses, he can certainly be gradually elevated to the point of understanding that there is no difference between the holy name of the Lord and the Lord himself. One who has reached such an understanding should be very respected by neophyte devotees. One should know for certain that without chanting the holy name of the Lord offenselessly, one cannot be a proper candidate for advancement in Krishna consciousness. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Leela 22.69, it is said, Mataji, please can you read that?
Yahara Komala Shraddha Sekanishta Jana Krame Krame Teho Bhakta Haibe Uttama.
One whose pate is soft and pliable is called a neophyte, but by gradually following the process, he will rise to the platform of a first-class devotee. Everyone begins his devotional life from the neophyte stage, but if one properly finishes chanting the prescribed number of rounds of Harinama, he is elevated step by step to the highest platform, Uttama Adhikari. The Krishna consciousness movement prescribes 16 rounds daily because people in the Western countries cannot concentrate for long periods while chanting on beads. Therefore, the minimum number of rounds is prescribed. However, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that unless one chants at least 64 rounds of japa, 100,000 names, he is considered fallen, patita. According to his calculation, practically every one of us is fallen. But because we are trying to serve the Supreme Lord with all seriousness and without duplicity, one can expect the mercy of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is famous as Patita Pavana, the deliverer of the fallen. When
Thank you,
Srila
Mataji.
Satya... Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Very good. So here, very, very beautiful. Prabhupada is saying Uttama. The Prabhupada is giving the definition of Uttama. Uttama means he is transcendental to Tamo Guna. Right? Generally, what are we doing? We are always inquiring about matters of this material world, which is Tama. It only increases our tamasic knowledge. Right? How do I get more money? How do I sleep better? How do I eat better? Right? And when what we have to inquire from Uttama is how to transcend this. Transcend from this tamoguna. Very beautifully Prabhupada has given this. The word uttamam refers to that which is above the material knowledge, right? And how do we? What is Shreya Uttamam? Shreya Uttamam means what is the most important activity is to inquire jignashu, right? One should approach a spiritual master and inquire about transcendental subject matters. And then here Prabhupada says that one actually becomes a Madhyama Adhikari, one should be accepted as a Madhyama Adhikari when one becomes initiated. Why? Because at that point, one takes a vow of chanting minimum 16 rounds and also to follow the 4 regulative principles. So following the 4 regulative principles brings us to the human platform. Right? Otherwise, until such time, we are equal to animals. But then the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra will enable us to move further in the human platform. Right? The human platform is like 0 axis. Right? X-axis, 0, Y-axis, both are 0. But when we chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra, then only we actually move forward in the Y-axis towards, and in a combination of X and Y will become Krishna Prem. When we have Guru Kripa, and then we also do our endeavor, right? When that converges, when the Kripa as well as our endeavor, like Yashoda Maya, at that point only, she could bind Krishna, isn't it? So our effort, when it meets the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, at that point, we will receive Krishna Prema, right? So, so one should give proper respect to others. Right? And then Prabhupada also talks about how 16 is only the prescribed minimum. Right? At no point in time we should feel proud. I'm a 16 rounder. Right? Some people feel very proud. I'm a 16 rounder. I chant 16 rounds. Very good. That means you've just come to the platform of initiation. That means what? Initiation means that is a starting of our getting connected to the Guru Parampara, right? And then that is a starting for our Cheto Darpana Marjanam, right? Being properly situated in one of the 4 Paramparas. And then what happens? We have to continue to chant Hare Krishna Maha Mantra more and more, right? Minimum 16 rounds. So as much as we water the plant, as much we give the plant proper sunlight, as much as we give the, we expose the plant to proper air, sunlight, right? Association of devotees, chanting our own endeavor of Hare Krishna Maha Mantra in the association of devotees, in a proper favorable environment, which is Brahma Muhurta time, etc., etc. When we do everything, then only the Bhakti Lata or the Bhakti creeper, that means in the association of devotees, with the help of the devotees, with the blessings of the devotees, the Bhakti Lata grows slow and slow and slow. And with the mercy of Guru and Gauranga, who is Patita Pavana, finally, we will reach that particular place from where we develop Nishtha. We develop firm faith in the chanting of the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. Like that. All right, let's move forward. Okay, let me share my screen again. When Srila Satyaraj Khan, okay, who will read? Deval Mataji, go ahead.
Yeah, Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
When
Yes.
Srila Satyaraja Khan, a great devotee of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, asked the Lord how a Vaishnava could be recognized, the Lord replied, Prabhu kahe yanra mukhe shuni eka bara, Krishna nama se pujya, Shreshta sabakara. If one hears a person say even once the word Krishna, that person should be accepted as the best man out of the common group. Chaitanya Charitamrita, 15th chapter, 106th verse, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, Attaiva yanra mukhe eka Krishna nama seta Vaishnava kariha tanhara samana. One who is interested in chanting the holy name of Krishna or who by practice likes to chant Krishna's names should be accepted as a Vaishnava and offered respects as such, at least within one's mind. Chaitanya Charitamrita, 15th chapter, 111th verse. One of our friends, a famous English musician, has become attracted to chanting the holy names of Krishna. And even in his records, he has several times mentioned the holy name of Krishna. At his home, he offers respects to pictures of Krishna and also to the preachers of Krishna consciousness. Also to the preachers of Krishna consciousness. In all regards, he has a very high estimation for Krishna's name and Krishna's activities. Therefore, we offer respects to him without reservation, for we are actually seeing that this gentleman is advancing gradually in Krishna consciousness. Such a person should always be shown respect. The conclusion is that anyone who is trying to advance in Krishna consciousness by regularly chanting the holy name should always be respected by Vaishnavas. On the other hand, we have witnessed that some of our contemporaries who are supposed to be great preachers have gradually fallen into the material conception of life because they have failed to chant the holy name of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. Yeah. So here, very beautiful. Prabhupada is saying chanting is the yardstick. Right? If we may be enjoying kirtan, we may be enjoying, hearing, right? Because it satisfies, it quenches our, some people are intelligent, they have a scientific bent of mind. So what happens? This discussion about Krishna, right? Sometimes they ask challenging questions because they find it, they like to engage in debates and all that. So they like to hear and then they like to argue and all that. So it satisfies their thirst for engaging in debates, etc. So one may be interested in hearing about Krishna. One may be interested in singing also because one may have a nice voice and one may want to sing, right? But all of that, and one may dance nicely in kirtan. One may dance nicely in sing and dance in the kirtan, play nice musical instruments in the kirtan. All of that, right? All of that, if it helps us or if it induces us to chant Hare Krishna Japa, then only they are useful. Otherwise, all of these activities can be purely in a material platform where we hear just to satisfy our mental speculation or our desire to engage in debates or our interest to sing nice songs and be glorified by others. Or you sing very nicely, or some people say, oh, you're so intelligent, you're asking some nice questions, you're giving some nice answers, so much of Bhagavad Gita verses. Right? All of that is still very material as long as it's not connected with Krishna. Of course, even doing this itself is a process of purification. It will ultimately bring us, but we don't want to wait for lifetimes after lifetimes, right? Slowly, we don't want to evolve. We want to attain Krishna Prema in this janma, in this lifetime. So what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to do all those activities with the proper consciousness. I sing Vaishnava bhajan, I sing bhajans so that I get connected to the Lord. I glorify the Lord. I glorify the Vaishnavas. I understand the mode of performing devotional service from Narottama Das Thakur's bhajans, from Lochan Das Thakur's bhajans. I hear Bhagavad Gita, I hear nectar of instruction, I study nectar of instruction. Because when I apply those nectar in my life, it transforms my life and make my life as a, it transforms my life to make me practice Krishna consciousness throughout my day, even when I'm sleeping, to practice, so that we become closer to Krishna. Right? What is that? Smartavya satatam Vishnur vismartavyo na jatuchit. Sarve vidhi nishedhyasur etayor eva kinkaraha. That means what? All the vidhi, all the rules and regulations that we practice, right? If that the goal of that should be that we should be able to always remember Krishna, never forget Krishna, and that we'll be able to do only when we are doing those activities for the pleasure of the Lord. And when we do it for the pleasure of the Lord, we will develop nama ruchi. We will develop taste for chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, where there is no music, there is no entertainment, there is no gratifying of the mind and the intelligence. There is nothing, because there is no new mantra every day. It is the same mantra, right? And there is no music attached to it, right? We simply have to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. It can get very boring if it is done very mechanically. Unless we are aspiring to get that taste to chant Hare Krishna. Unless we are dedicating every round to the Lord, saying, "Oh Lord, I'm chanting this round for your pleasure. Please give me taste in chanting Hare Krishna, so I can continue the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mantra for your pleasure forever and ever." Like that, right? When we are praying to the Lord to give us the strength, unless we do that, we may derive pleasure from so many devotional activities, but it will not help us get taste in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. And 99% of our spiritual life is dependent on the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So everything, whatever we do, ultimately it has to, of course, it will have to make us hear more about Krishna, sing more Vaishnava bhajans, etc. But all of those activities also, it should help us develop taste in chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. We want to chant Shuddha Naam. That is the most important goal. Everything else facilitates this most important activity of chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the pleasure of the Lord, like that. Okay, so let me share my screen. 147. Okay, last 3 minutes. Let's request this Mataji who's raised her hand. Who has raised the hand? Okay, Nagavani Mataji, I trust you have brought your Nectar of Instruction book. Please go ahead. We'll end with you. Otherwise, I thought of ending the session, but since you have raised your hand.
मेरा बहुत पुराना book है, बहुत small letters है Mataji.
So Mataji, we'll end here, no problem. Next class, please get your book. It's already 1:47. I thought I'll give you a chance just because you've raised your hand. And Monimala Mataji also, I can see her, but she's not able to unmute. So just check your audio and video connections and be prepared with the book so that next time you all can read. All right? Hare Krishna. So Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So let's quickly do 2-3 minutes of Harinam Sankirtan, and then we will end our session. If devotees have any queries.
Nectar of Instructions आपके पास किसका है Mataji?
What? Nectar of Instruction. Book is there, na? You will get it in any center.
No. Author कौन है Mataji?
Rupa Goswami. Rupa Goswami has written, Upadeshamrita. Prabhupada has translated Upadeshamrita into a summary study, which is Nectar of Instruction. So it's Prabhupada's book. You will get it in any of the ISKCON centers. Okay, Mataji?
Yes.
Okay, Hare Krishna. You will also get it in Amazon. You can get a copy from Amazon also. Okay, so let's quickly do Harinam Sankirtan. Devotees who have any queries or want to share any realizations can raise your hand. We will quickly take 2-3 and then we'll end our session. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Aschakya Shatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jai Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Gurudeva, Jaya Gurudeva, Nitai, Gaura Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Also, my sincere gratitude to all the devotees who've sent so many messages wishing Daita for her birthday. My sincere gratitude to all of you. Thank you all very much. Vancha kalpatarobhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev ki Jai. Yes, he's talking about George Harrison. And also Allen Ginsberg. He was also a musician at that time. So one of the two maybe Prabhupada is referring to. Hare Krishna. Anyone else has any query? Nagavini Mataji, next time, tomorrow's session, you'll be with the book, right? Oh, sorry. Everyone can unmute themselves now. Hare Krishna.
हरि बोल माता जी बुक का भी बहुत छोटा सा है माता जी. I have
Mataji, naya book le lo, Mataji. It's okay. It's like 20 rupees, 30 rupees or something like that. So you can get a new book. Nice book, nectar of instruction, fresh book. It's always nice to read from a new book. At least I remember when I was small, when I used to, pass out from 4th to 5th standard, I used to smell the books nicely. Abhi 5th standard mein main itna acha hai padhai karungi. Karke, like that. So you can also take a new book.
Font size बड़ा
Yeah,
है क्या?
स्वाद ले सकते हैं.
नया बुक का font size बड़ा है क्या?
Yeah. I'm sure it must be a good font size, a readable font size, because we all read from the book only as much as possible. So definitely, the BPT will not publish in a font size is not readable, right? So definitely, Mataji, it will be readable, or you can check and get a specs maybe. I don't know what is the issue, but please solve it, Mataji.
I have Suno Mataji, I have a problem like
okay. You send me a message offline. Send me a WhatsApp message. Hare Krishna. Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Srila Gurudev ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you very much. Meet you all tomorrow morning, 5 o'clock. Brahma